So that's basically the intent. But anyway, for afterwards, after the design review, we have organized to have a couple of judges here to provide you a platform to get into direct contact with some judges. And we also brought along, you might see those small boxes in the back, all the score sheets or all the comments of the judges, just to have a basis to perhaps, if you want to, discuss about the judging of yesterday and the day before. Today, I want to talk about some general things first. Then I'm going to introduce you to one of our judges and to our chief judges. They are going to give you some comments on the design judging as well. And we try to not to stretch it too much. So I stop talking about general things right now and go into the topic immediately. Okay, general things. Just to give you an imagination about the competition, so we've seen this year 73 combustion cars, 36 FS electric cars, 77% of them have utilized aerodynamic components or aerodynamic packages. We've seen more than 3,500 students, or we have more than 3,500 students. Here on the site, on the event side, we have 200 volunteers, 63 red shirts, you might have seen them, always organizing and building up the locations. And we had 112 design judges over the past 2 days, which is quite remarkable and displays hopefully a little bit to you guys that we take the event pretty seriously and try to do our best to have a good competition in there. These figures you might have seen as well in the video of Aliyah when she talked a little bit about general things of the competition. It was very interesting for me to see as well because we have 64% of students which are at their first event or which are for the first time here at Germany, which is also nice to see because over the past few years we had some students which had been more than 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, which basically is not in our primary intent of the competition, but for sure we can't prohibit students to take part in the Formula Student competition worldwide more than 3 years. Some more numbers. Longest competing team member, 10 years. Okay, I wouldn't have done it during studies, to be honest. I did it 3 years and it was enough. I was pretty much exhausted after the 3 years. 10 years is, wow, impressive. The age range, also impressive. The oldest student taking part at the competition is 38 years old. So very old from my perspective, but no offense to anybody who's over 30 in this room. Male to female student ratio, 9:1. Shouldn't be a surprise. For whom it's a surprise, this ratio? I hope nobody raises his hand. So we all know that there are pretty less female in the competition, but the ratio actually is 9:1, just as a general figure. This year, also I think you've heard already, we had some new things, which is the driverless competition, which was a concept award for this year. And we're going to see next year the first driverless cars running already. I don't want to stretch it too much into detail. I think you all know what the driverless competition is about. So we as an organizing body are pretty much looking forward to see the driverless cars next year. We are excited as well. And the rule set's gonna be published over the next few weeks to give you enough time to prepare everything and to prepare the cars for next year. We had another new thing this year, and I hope you made good use of it. We tried to establish kind of a mentorship program. So we asked all the white shirts to go to 2 or 3 teams, or sometimes a little bit more, to provide you a direct contact to the white shirts, to the organizers, just if there are some problems, if you have some issues, if there's something not going well with the competition, if you want to discuss about perhaps the design philosophy or some cost items. So I just could warmly invite everybody to make use of this opportunity. If there's anything where you see the need to discuss about, just approach your mentor, your white shirt, and take chance to have the direct contact into the organizing body. The other new thing is that we've spread, or that we ask you to give us also some feedback directly to the design event, directly to the cost event, about the judges, how the judges had been, or in your feeling, how you seen them performing, if they performed well, if they perhaps were not so polite, or the English was not so good, which is just, if you remember, I just told you we have 112 judges in there, so for us it's not possible to see every single one performing in the judging event. So that's actually then up to you to tell us a little bit or give us a small impression how they performed in the design event. It's just to establish and remain a pretty high level of judging, because that's what we want to offer to you as the students, or to respect your effort over the past few years, which you've done into the car just by creating a good competition and providing good judges in the design and cost event in this manner. This is also something you might have seen already. So these are the design finalists. FS Electric had been nominated yesterday already. On the bottom you see the Formula Student Combustion finalists for later this evening. So design finals are going to be held from 7 to 9:30. Again in the forum, as always, as every year. It's a closed event, so it's not public. Not everybody is allowed to go in. And winners are gonna be announced tomorrow evening on the award ceremony. Perhaps a little bit more interesting things to give you an insight about the design judging itself, the design philosophy. So what is our philosophy as an organizing body behind the design event? What we don't want to see, that's perhaps a little bit easier, is that you just throw something in a simulation, you fully trust the simulation, you take it, you put it in a 3D printer, you get it on the track and it works somehow, but you don't understand why. The other thing we don't really like too much to see is if you just copy-paste. You've seen, oh wow, there are some good performing teams over the past few years. They run a 3-stage rear wing, so a 3-stage rear wing must be good. That's not really a good reasoning, is it? So always the things that you do, the concepts that you determine, they have to fit to your overall vehicle concept. And that's something we try to find out if you've understood. And that's the first point, the student's understanding about the influence of his component subsystem on the overall vehicle. So did you understand which influence aerodynamic or the upright or the differential has on the performance of your car? Which targets, which goals did you derive from this understanding? What was your, which have been your possibilities that you've seen? So not only just buy a differential and throw it in, we want to see that you have made up your mind about perhaps some different differentials, some different lock values, perhaps own production, stuff like that. So a small decision matrix in quotes, and then we evaluate if you had a good way, a reasonable way to come to a solution that fits to your car. So we more or less, we talking as being a judge sometimes, we more or less try to understand your knowledge behind it and not the final solution. So it's not about the freaky technology that comes into the car. You have to give us an impression that you've understood why it's necessary sometimes or why it's sometimes not necessary to put the highest level of technology into the car. Another big factor for us is to see if you had a good balance of resources. So we pretty much know there are some teams that have a huge budget and there are some teams that don't. But that doesn't mean that the teams with a small budget aren't able to build a good engineered car. Because that's the same in business, everyday life. If I talk from my own experience, I have a certain budget and I have to try to make the best use of my budget as I can. And if the budget is not high, you have a reasoning behind it. So you might have a reason why not to spend money on a mold for aero components, or you might have a reason why not to put exhaustive efforts into test bench tests of the motor setup. So that's good, but you have to tell us. You always have to tell us your reasoning behind it. Why is it like that? Consideration of resources, consideration of reasoning, what was your way to your overall vehicle concept. And that brings me to the last one. Overall vehicle concept is very much important. What we've seen a lot is that a lot of the subsystems had their own targets and they were kind of separated from the overall vehicle concept. So you just did what you had to do on the suspension side perhaps, but you forgot about the rest of the car. So that's then again not a good overall vehicle concept, is it? So that's something we want to see as well, that you've understood every target, every component working in an entire system. A short word on what we've done for that, and that brings me afterwards to the, I think, the score sheet. We've applied 7 categories. You see on the top point, and we discussed yesterday, we discussed yesterday about raising the points for this category. It's the overall vehicle concept. That's of major importance for us. That doesn't, again, necessarily need that you have to have a purely high-tech car. That's not meant with overall vehicle concept. It's just meant, again, that you've understood how to put your components and your resources together into a reasonable overall car. And that's the most important, at least, I think, to perform out there on the track well. Second category is vehicle performance. So some of you might remember in former days we had aerodynamics, for example, as a separate category, judging category, but we always face the problem, what if a team doesn't have aerodynamic? Well, you could argue still the team should be in the position to argue why they didn't do aerodynamics, but to be honest, if you don't have aero, you wouldn't have get many scores in the category, so that's kind of unfair. So we tried to put it together in a, in quotes, theoretical category, where all the influences on the vehicle performance, like tire data, vehicle dynamics, aerodynamics, stuff like that, takes its influence. Third category, I think it's pretty much self-explanatory. It's the powertrain, mechanical structural engineering as well. So that's the frame, that these are, for example, the uprights or the steering components from a mechanical point of view. Driver interface and integration, I think it's clear as well what's meant here. And the last one is electronics, electrics on a low voltage and a high voltage side. All right, that's something which I'm directly into, to be honest, and it's a little bit to give you an insight what happens actually at an event with the things you upload. For the engineering design report, I know sometimes as a team member you have other things to do in preparing the competition, so you have really to have a high level of discipline sometimes to fill out all these things. But why is it important? Why is the engineering design report important to us? First of all, we read every single one of them, which is sometimes pretty hard, but I'm going to say some words to this later. We score it following a specific scheme, so we have applied really a specific scheme to try to make it as equal as possible for everybody, because I think it's clear that the reports, they differ very much from each other. Then we try to make an unofficial scoring as well about evaluating what we think your level of knowledge is behind it. So I give you an example. I read a report. I would rate the report following my scoring sheet for, let's say, 4.5 points, but because it was well made. But in my feeling behind is that also in a ranking up to 5 points, your team knowledge behind is not 4.5 points, it's just 4 points. So I just, in brackets, mark it with 4 points. And afterwards, I'm going to go through all the teams and try to align all the teams into the queuing groups, which you've seen up here for the judging. Try to balance the groups. So I try to put in a team which I think that has a very fundamental, very good knowledge about everything. I try to put in a team which I think there is still some room or some space for improvement, and which could learn a lot from the other ones, and then I try to fill up and balance the groups. Why do I do that? It's pretty easy. The other way around. We have 12 queues for the combustion design judging, and you can imagine every group of judges is scoring a little bit differently, because it's always, let's be honest, a matter of subjectivity, although we try to be as objective as possible. So I try in preparing the competition to eliminate as most of variation as possible. That's the reason why I try to assemble equal groups. Okay. Exactly match the judges to groups. Try to avoid former team connections. That's something we try to do as well. So if somebody had been in the Washington team in former days and is a judge today, we try not to put him into the judging queue of the Washington team. Just as simple as that. And then afterwards, we're going to hand over all the reports to the judges as a preparation. So we upload it online. The judges can download it online following their judging queue, and they can prepare for the design event. This sentence I've shown last year already, but I didn't see much improvement on that, and I want to make a serious point on that today. The design report is the first impression of your car. Really, it is the first impression of your car, and I told you already, I'm doing an unofficial ranking of the teams and the team's knowledge, and if I really, after the second sentence, have the feeling, not so good, you're gonna get a bad rating in there, and you might fall into a group which is not beneficial for your overall score in the end. Honest sentence, you see it on the bottom. If this would have been real world reading the design reports, I would have 50%, really 50% of the design reports I would have taken after the second, third, fourth sentence and thrown it away sometimes. So these are hard words, I know, but if I just go through on a quick run and see the drawings being really a mess, no measures in, no clear drawing. If I see, and I'm gonna switch to the next page, if I see massive text, if I see a simple page and this is just crowded with text, let's be honest, in real life you never would read something like that. You just see it and say, Jesus, that's gonna be massive. So that's a bad impression. And this bad impression influences your scoring. And you should be aware of something like that. So I've written some things which you should try to take care of. So please put your university name in, put your car number in, make a headline, make a bottom line. Why is that? You've seen the judging group sitting there, and they spread around all the score sheets and everything. And up to a certain degree, it happens that there's a single page just on the table. So, okay, which team to align to? To which team does it belong? If there's no team name on it, it's really as simple as that. They can't align it. So now you might say, okay, it's good. If you had a bad impression, you don't know which team it's belonging to. Well, that shouldn't be your intent, should it? It should be completely the other way around. You should try to make a good impression on that. Vehicle drawings, I already said it. An image, a rendering is not a vehicle drawing. Also as simple as that. Put measures in, put some details in. I don't need to be honest, the text box on the right bottom side. I don't really need that, so we are pretty loose on something like that. But I want to see a good drawing, show me some details and very clear details. What's also there? Optically overloaded. That's very nicely phrased. So just crowded by text. That's not a nice report. You wouldn't file your report at a university like this, would you? You always look for a nice layout, for a nice setup, for a nice standard. Do the same for the design report. Again, you're gonna lose scores otherwise. Do a brief abstract in the beginning. Sometimes I have to proceed until the 4th page to find out whether an electric car has a 4-wheel drive or not. That's just not good. Do a brief abstract in the beginning, what's your car about, and then go through the different topics. Design objectives, I want to see, as I introduced already, I want to see your way how to get to a solution. And for sure, I want to see that you set yourself some targets and that they fit into the overall vehicle concept. And then another thing, it's a technical report. So most times it's not so nice to read some, let's say, marketing sentences. Don't beat around the bush. Don't start with the beginning of 1910 about some important drivers that made some experience in the NASCAR whatever race and that they performed well and this was a role model for you. So well, that's okay. That's fair enough if you have a role model. But for a technical report, it's just misplaced. So try to focus within the report to deliver information, and for the delivery of information, it's important to have an appropriate layout and to have an appropriate content. All right. Let me sort my mind. I think I'm going to continue first, and then afterwards ask Thomas to come up the stage. This section is about to give you some insights, and probably this is something most judges won't ever tell you, but which are again true and which are again sometimes leading to that you might lose points in the design judging. And it's a very personal thing, a very emotional thing right now, so no doubt on that. But still, and I want to be honest to you guys, it influences your score. And there's something you could do to not lose scores. On Saturday morning, we try to brief the judges. We try to brief them what our design philosophy is and how to go through judging and how to behave in the judging and everything. So we try really to balance everything and to be as objective as possible. But there are a lot of things that are up to subjectivity. And your task is not to create a negative impression. I'm going to give you some examples. We have a pretty tough time schedule up here always. So the first thing you should do is make sure you are on time. If it's getting late and you come running in and throwing in all the stuff and everything, what do you think, which impression a judge has from your team performance in this moment? He would think, well, those guys are not really well organized. So what do you think happens afterwards? He has this negative, small, tiny idea in his mind, and that's going to influence the overall score, let's be honest. And that's something that you don't want to have. So on this page, I've written together, first impression matters. Are you on time? Are you in a hurry? Do you seem to be stressed, or do you pretend or show that you are a well-organized team? Do you look professional? There was a comment, this had been put together by a judge himself. There had been a comment for the phrase, are you looking like a professional race team? Or do you look like a bunch of hobos that just met coincidentally right before the event? So make sure that you wear uniform clothes, for example. That doesn't have to be a shirt like this one. A black t-shirt is okay as well, but just try to deliver a good optical picture. Is the car clean, or is it looking like a mess? Like you're coming directly from scrutineering and had to do 1,000 things afterwards. That's directly influencing. If I see a car that's extremely dirty, extremely a mess, that will influence my scoring afterwards. Although it's still a good design, but it's again something emotional, something subjective, which I, from nature of human being, can't prevent, to be honest. How do you bring along spare parts? So some of you actually don't bring along spare parts, but if you bring along spare parts, make sure you bring along them nicely, not on a really messy thing that you really can't define, which has 20 wheels because you haven't been able to just align 4 wheels properly, which is looking like a mess. Bring it along well set up as well, in nice crates or in labeled crates, for example. That just gives another impression about the professionalism of your team. And the last thing here, know about the infrastructure. I think Formula Student Germany is pretty much known how the setup looks like up here. So if you come along with huge walls for posters and everything, and they just don't fit in the booth, you don't gain anything, and it's just blocking everything, and it's just crowding or overcrowding the slot you have. So make sure you know the infrastructure and are well prepared to make best use of it. Undress the car. That's a warm advice I could give you. So a lot of the teams just throw in their car into the design judging, and it's written in the rules, ready to race condition and stuff like that. Well, yeah, that's okay, that's true for the very first beginning. But do your introduction, and then afterwards define some designates of your team to check up the car or to disassemble some body parts, just to allow some access for the judges to the cars. Because you want to deliver, you want to show them what you've done, and you want to see them what you've done. So try to provide them the appropriate basis. Yep, and the last sentence, important as well. So if you bring along spare parts, make sure you bring along only those ones you've understood. So don't bring along spare parts you don't have the expert for, because it might happen that the judge exactly picks this spare part and asks something about it, and you have to say, well, I'm sorry, I don't know, or I can't give you the impressions behind it. That's not so good, is it? Professionalism, the word I struggled with 2 seconds ago. Look professional. We faced some judges, not here at the competition to be honest, but at other competitions already, that didn't look pretty much professional. So they were wearing a base cap, were wearing sunglasses, which might have been due to last night's partying on the campsite, but then perhaps the student shouldn't be in the design judging anyway. Chewing gum and like this, you couldn't understand any single word. So that's really not good, and that's going to influence your scores. So make sure you look professional. For the guys, freshly shaved, okay, I'm not freshly shaved as well today, but make sure your beard is dressed up nicely, you're not looking like Castaway. And for the girls, it's not Saturday night evening entertainment thing in the design judging. So step perhaps sometimes a little bit back from the makeup, so a natural makeup is okay, but not overdressing, no skirts like that one. So for the males, it's nice to see, obviously, for sure, but it will distract too much from the scoring, and that's not beneficial for you as well. Okay, Claude has a different opinion, all right. He disagrees. No, I think the point is clear, so make sure you look appropriately for the design event. Middle point. It's always hard to phrase it nicely, so I phrase it directly: smell professional. I know everybody of us is working hard on the car and is trying to get things ready, but sometimes please take the time to have a last shower just in front of the judging, or just have a last teeth brush for not torturing your judge too much, to be honest. Because what will happen? If you smell bad, let's say it directly in words, if you smell bad, the judge will step away from you and will look for the distance. And he has this negative thing in his mind, and you won't score as high as you would if you would smell just neutral. Act professional. About those small, tiny things, it's not about Pokemon hunt in the design event, is it? So just turn off your phones, turn off your radio, put them away. You don't need it in design judging. You really don't need it. And the world keeps on turning, although you are away for 1 hour. So put those things away, focus on the judging itself, and stay at the game. Don't chew gum, I said it already. Oh, the last one is nice as well. So we've seen, who of you knows the home shopping channel, or one of the home shopping channels? For sure, it's about delivering information, about a little bit being enthusiastic about what you've done and what you are going to present. But it's not a home shopping channel. So if there's somebody is coming along and saying, "Wow, this is the best car ever," and it's blah 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 blah, so okay, that doesn't deliver a good impression as well. So be reasonable on that. Don't be unemotional. That's also a thing. That's not beneficial. So if you stand just like there and I have made a car and have a look yourself. So it's good, but find out yourself. That's also not good. So try to find a balance between entertaining and not showing enthusiasm. Answer professionally. There are a couple of things to be considered. Be precise. Don't beat around the bush most times. And I'm coming to another point later. Try to have your vocabulary ready. If you don't, it's just losing time for you. You are losing time to deliver the information you would like to deliver. It's the judges. I don't want to say the judges always speak perfect and fluently English, so that's no point on that. And if somebody struggles a little bit with words, that happens, for sure. But we've seen some students and judges also sometimes that are really not good in talking in English, and that just blocks the entire thing. And this, again, gives a negative impression. Don't waste the judging time. You just have 30 minutes for the combustion cars, 35 minutes for the electric cars. Make best use of it, and don't lose time by looking and trying to find the correct words. Only answer content-based if you are the expert in this area. It might happen that I'm standing together with an engine student, and I'm trying to ask his influence on the entire powertrain, or perhaps on the suspension components or whatever. And the moment the student tries to answer, pretending to be an expert, that's not good. Try to cover the time a little bit and to move the judge over to the expert and hand over to the expert nicely. So don't try to pretend to be an expert in the field you aren't. The judge will pretty early realize that you are not. About the people standing around judging. Although you are not involved, it's beneficial if you are concentrated on the thing, if you have a smile on your face. So that's for everybody standing around and spectating the entire thing. Have a smile on your face, look nicely. The judges sometimes just gaze a little bit through the crowd which is standing around the booth, and if they say always faces with very sad or tired or somebody lying on the floor in the back or something like that, that's again not a good impression, is it? So try to make sure to deliver a complete good picture. Yeah, nice sentence. Talk to each other in English and don't try to talk in your native language because the judge sometimes might understand. What we've seen is that some of the students try to fall back in their native language. So for German, it's pretty much easy for me, but I also understand some French or some Spanish or some words, you could pick. So you don't benefit from falling back in your native language. So just continue talking in English because that might deliver again a bad picture to the judges. Yes, some judges might not know the rules. That happens. We can't prevent or prepare everybody to have 100% knowledge in the rules, but control your moods when you realize the judge doesn't have the understanding about the rules. Just tell them, well, okay, that's written in the rules, but yeah, try really to control your mood and not say, oh, no, this dumb boss, he didn't understand anything. So that's not good if you show the expression directly to the judge. In case a judge is not occupied, be proactive. And if all your team members of the design judging are in a talk already, perhaps somebody of the outer ones spectating could make a step forward and go to the judge and say, is there something you have interest in, or might I tell you something about our team structure, about our organization, about the things we've done over the past few years, or over the past few months of the last year? Because that's something everybody could talk about, isn't it? But if there's a judge just standing by himself, it's lost time for you again. So this is the point I already was trying to lead to a little bit. What if you don't know the answer? Basically, you have three options, to be honest. Either you admit you have no clue. Second, you lie to the judge, or you pretend to have the knowledge in it. Or third, be a politician and to distract him from the topic. These are the three options. So what are the shortcomings and the benefits of it? And just open talk again. If you admit it openly, for most of the judges, honestly, it's no point. Nobody knows everything. And for the judges, if you had got to a point where you just have to say, oh, well, I'm sorry, I can't answer this question. For most of the judges, that's fair enough. And they just stop and move on to the next topic. That's okay. And they're gonna get scored following what you've shown him. If you try to establish an answer, although you are not an expert, that's a little bit of a gamble. So you have a 50-50 percentage chance to succeed or to fail. So if you succeed, everything's good because you will score higher. If you fail, that's really not good because then you will score way less than you should or than you deserved. So that's up to you to gamble, but I wouldn't advise you to do it. And the other one, or the third option, and that would be my advice, try to distract the judge a little bit to a topic that you feel more comfortable with. So if he asks a question and you clearly don't know the answer, then try perhaps to not give him the 100% answer, perhaps the 20% answer, and have a spare part ready, or have your folder of documentary ready, and try about, look what I've here, or look about this amazing part, or whatever. Try to distract him a little bit, and that's the best option. Because the judge won't realize, to be honest, and you are in a field which you are more comfortable with. After the judging, so we're almost through with the judging. It's done. You have gotten your feedback. You have to assemble your car. And what happens most, and that's no offense, that's just natural, you start talking to each other. How was it? What did he ask of you? Was it difficult? Oh, he tortured me into a specific topic, for sure. That's okay. Do it 1 minute. And then afterwards, pack your stuff and try to get off the booth. And there should be one thing you really should be aware of. The judges still can hear you. So if you say this, whatever, not so nice phrasing for a judge, he put me into a topic I was really not convenient and he bothered me and he was so shitty and whatever. Oh well, bad luck, no scores. It's as simple as that. So after the judging, pack your things, move away, and then you can discuss openly about what you felt about a judge or not. But make sure he can't hear you anymore. Okay. A lot of talking. These are general things, and I hope you appreciate the openness I tried to give you. At this point, I would like to ask Thomas. Where's Thomas? He's in a talk already, to come up the stage, to give you an insight of a judge directly. He judged over the past 2 days about what he would expect from students to see, to do, how to act. Yes. So just hand over.
Thanks, Peter. Hello, good morning, everybody. Yeah, like Peter said, Peter asked me if I would like to say something, what from a point of a normal judge, not maybe from a chief judge or from an organization of design judging. What do I think? What is important for design judging, and what do I judge, and what do I expect from the students for good basic design judging? I mean, I think we heard that often. What we judge for sure is the knowledge of the students, and not so much of the car. And I think this is said very often, but still in design judging, often you see that students try to defend their design, and that's fine, but this is not the real point. It's not so much about the car, it's for sure much more about your knowledge. Yeah, maybe you wondered also, often you're expert for your part, and the design judges are often there from industry. They don't even know your car, that maybe don't even are experts for that part what you designed. And but how is it possible that an engineer, let's say a normal experienced engineer, can do a design judging? And I think I can answer that question. Also similar to that, maybe you can find also in the scoring later, maybe you will find some new year's, first year's teams or unexperienced teams which have very good design scores, maybe comparable to some other teams which are very successful for many years. So also this, I think this is interesting, how can this happen? So yeah, so I think this is, this is basically because they really have a good knowledge, a basic knowledge about what they did. And how would you describe in a general development, what are the typical stages of a development? Anybody idea? How would you say, do you have different, how do you have, what kind of stages do you have in a normal development? Doesn't matter really what kind of part that is. Anybody? Do you have an idea? What is a typical, what is really simple? Do you understand what I mean?
At first the concept, first the rules, then the concept phase maybe, then simulation, validation, at first maybe the first step, then
and the third maybe?
and then the construction comes on.
Yeah, I would say, okay, design, in general.
Manufacturing.
Okay, that's the end after the development maybe, but there's one important part is missing. One important stage is missing. So we said a concept phase. Yeah. What is a concept phase?
Thought about what car you need to win the competition.
Yes, for example. So, for example, set the targets. Let's say, okay, let's first finish the first 3 stages. First concept phase, then design. We can talk about what that means also, and then very important, the validation. This is at least this is the minimum requirement for, I would say, development in general. So, and I think this is something what every judge can always quite easily check. Is the concept was the concept be done correctly? Yeah. Was there any thought of it, or is it maybe did the student just choose one option and never thought about other options? You know, this is I think one important part of the concept. Also, I think the most important part of a concept is a finished concept is that you have targets, that you set your targets. Where do you want to go? What do you want to achieve? For example, typical target is, for example, weight. Yeah. But if I, as a judge, ask, okay, for example, let's say I do a drivetrain judging what I do sometimes, and I ask, tell me your concept of your drivetrain. And what were your design targets? And then I have chosen a differential, and my design target is that it's lightweight. Yeah, I think that's fine, but I think that's not enough. Yeah, if that cannot be the whole concept, result of the whole concept phase. So at least I would expect that you set different targets. You explain why, and also that you show what other options would be an option, and what is the advantage of one option, what is the advantage of option 2, what is the advantage of option 3, and why did you choose one? So, and often, and this is also a case where I would say like newcomer teams are quite good in, because usually they check what is available, what kind of targets should choose. And this is also a problem with lots of those legacy teams, I would say, right? With teams with long experience, with all the former teams already have like really nice cars and choose already very good solutions. And this is very tempting that you just take that solution and do not think about the other options you would have. And this leads to, at the end, that the engineer or you as a student do not gain the knowledge what you could gain if you start a car from scratch. You know, this is a typical problem for a student, I would say, in design judging, and this is also a reason why often very experienced teams maybe do not score so high in design, but maybe some youngsters, I would say, really score good. Okay. So the next is if you finish the concept, yeah, then of course you start the design. And like you said design is designing and maybe calculating some things. Also, this is very important that you show what is the input data and how did you create that. Because this really shows if you understand something or if you just input some kind of data, maybe you don't even know where it comes from, yeah, and then you get something out of some whatever calculation you do. So this is very important that you explain what is your input data, where do you get it from, why did you choose that, yeah, and with all topics, always this documentation is important. So for the concept as well as for the design, if you cannot show something like on paper, like should it be just a rough calculation? They say, okay, for the start, I just did a simple calculation on paper to get an idea what should be the numbers. Also, you should know if you do a design, then for sure you know what is the main input data. Yeah. For example, if you do a driveline design, for sure you will know what is the rough torque on your drive shaft. You will just know that. If I as a judge ask somebody what is the rough number of your torque, what you can transmit on the wheels, yeah, and you don't know that, this is very strange. Yeah, I cannot imagine that you can design a car without knowing that. Yeah. So also you should have some data there. So you're talking with the engineer to engineer, yeah, and then also that means we don't need fancy presentations like we have in the business plan, for example. I mean, that's really nice, yeah, but if you want to discuss a technical issue, then from engineer to engineer, you do that with the help of some data, yeah. And I'm sure you do some tests, you do some calculation, and that's what design judges would like to see for sure. Yeah. Yeah. What else we have? Yeah, for example, also very important, I think also it doesn't matter really what kind of part it is. Let's say if you design a suspension part or if you design a drivetrain part, you always need load collectives, yeah? And you need to show how did you get that. Often this data is difficult to measure, it's difficult to estimate, yeah? So that's why it's very interesting to discuss with the judge, and often you will get the question, where did you get the input data from? Yeah? For example, how did you estimate like dynamic loading? How did you estimate those values? So this is not an easy task, and there are different approaches to it. So show that, yeah? And this also shows to the judge, if you cannot show that, if you do not even know what is the input data of your calculation, then yeah, this is very difficult to judge, and I think this is very basic for for design. If you have no input data, there cannot be an output. And as well, if you use some kind of simulation, if you use or even it's a simple calculation, or if it's FEA tools, or is it maybe even like special tools you get from some of your sponsors or whatever, you really need to understand what's happening there, yeah. And this is also what a design judge would check, yeah. Does the student actually know what the tool is doing? What is in between the input data and the output? What happens there? So, yeah. Okay. Also, I said the third very important point is the validation. Yeah, typical example is you design for example, a chassis, or let's say monocoque or a space frame, whatever. You do lots of simulation, and you spend many hours of designing that. And of course, you had your targets and so on, and you calculated that, and all looked good. And then you just assemble the car, but you never know, is that actually true? Did I actually achieve the targets I set? So, and also this is the validation, for example, that you do a torsional stiffness test to see, okay, is the torsional stiffness, is that really what I set as a target at the beginning, and as well, is it in the same range at least as the calculation was? And maybe the result is no, maybe it's not, maybe it's way less than the calculation set, and that is a very good point of creating understanding of what you did. So what was the problem in the calculation, or is there a problem in manufacturing, and so on. And this is really when you can start to create some understanding. Yeah. And even if you would tell a judge, yeah, so I calculated a value was like 10 times higher than what the test showed, and you can explain that, I promise you will get good points for that, because it easily shows that you understood what was happening. Yeah. Same thing is if you bring broken parts. If you bring whatever broken axles or something like that, you can show, okay, I tested that, maybe from a laboratory test bench, I tested that, I saw, okay, I just wanted to see what is the maximum static load, what this can which can survive. Then this really shows that you tested it, and for sure you will learn a lot by that, and then you also will get a lot of points for this. Yeah. Okay. So. So basically, what I think what you should remember, make sure that you really document or really do actually all the 3 stages of a development. This is not only for Formula Student, this is valid for every development in the world, I think. It doesn't matter if you design a bridge or a space shuttle or a Formula 1 car. At the end, this is always the same, and this will help you later as well. Yeah, make sure that you finish all these 3 design steps, or development steps, I have to say, and that you document it. So you always need to show something. Yeah, note all your data, take notes while you do it. Usually you start your development, and then 1 year later the competition is there. You will not remember everything. So that's why. Note things, take photos, and bring the data to the competition. Okay, so I think that's it. Do you have any questions, or what's that? Do you have any questions for understanding, or did I not explain something well, or no? So I will be here, you see there are many judges around here. They will be here also for other questions, for design feedback. And thanks a lot, and I'm looking forward to talk to you later.
Thanks, Thomas. Thank you very much. Just a short amendment before I ask the next guys to come upstairs. Make use. This is a judge insight. This is a direct contact, and what we try this year to give you is really a personal feeling, a personal insight, to make it a little bit easier for you to estimate how to perform and what you should do and where to put the emphasis on in the design judging. So make best use of the direct contacts we are trying to create and trying to provide, as I already introduced in the beginning, the mentorship program. We have the direct contact to the judges. We try to be there for you, so make best use of such things as good as possible. All right, we're almost close to the end. As last point, I would like to come up the chief judges to the stage and have at least a short report what they've seen this year and what they've faced, because that might be interesting as well. And during or until they are up here, a short question to everybody. Who knows what a chief design judge is and what he does? Okay, yeah. That's interesting. Oh yeah, Steve, you know? That's good. That's interesting and perhaps also good. Let me just briefly explain. So, okay, over there, Pat. We nominate some chief design judges. You know the normal queues, you know the normal group leaders in the queue and the normal judges, normal in quotes, judges in the queues. They are always into the thing during the day within this group, within this queue. But you somehow have to balance and make sure that the queues are scoring equally and that the score between the 12 queues is balanced and is really fair to everybody. And you need an instrument to balance that. So basically the chief judges, they are floating around, they are having a look at different cars from different queues, they are looking at the raw scores the judges do in the queue, and they try to evaluate if there had been, for example, a more strict group or more weak group, a more friendly group or more unfriendly group, stuff like that. So their job is to understand the level within the groups, to compare it to the scores, to balance it, and to provide as fair as possible competition. Okay, just briefly explain. I'm gonna hand over, Rudy, Owen, Pat, Frank, who's gonna take the lead? Rudy's gonna take the lead. Some words from the chief judges, what they've experienced this year.
A very good morning. There's not too much to say, luckily. Peter's already said most of it. So we're effectively just gonna reiterate on some of the topics that we have seen this year, or we see throughout the years. Maybe I start with one of those slides that Peter had on before. Unlike you guys, we've been here for more than 1 year, more than 2 years, more than 3 years. So we've seen a few things, and we see also evolution of things, and we would like to reiterate on those. So one was what struck me this year, just as a very personal experience. I talked to a team, and they said, yeah, we wanted to reduce the weight of the car. This was our goal. I said, yeah, fair enough. Reducing the weight kind of makes sense. But why? Why did you want to reduce the weight? And they couldn't answer. So this comes back to the goals. Reducing weight, we've all heard it before for 10 years. Reducing weight is a good thing. But why do you want to reduce the weight? I think it comes back to the fundamental understanding of what you're doing. So if you have a very simple, I don't know, lap time simulation, or even just a point mass accelerating along a straight line, then it becomes clear why you want to reduce weight. But if you can't answer such a question, your design objectives, your design targets are also a bit questionable. And the other thing we see to more and more is in terms of simulation tools, what was also mentioned before. We've done this in CFD, we've done that in CFD, or other tools. I know from professional experience how much effort we have to put in those tools, that they produce sensible results. And for you, maybe using it for only like half a year and fully relying on what this tool is giving you is very dangerous. So please, when you use those tools, be ready to have the judge ask you about, did you really understand what this tool is giving you and why it is giving you? Have you checked it? Does it make any sense from just common sense or first basic physical principles? Does it really make sense? And this is what we like to emphasize this year, that you really come back from the overall vehicle concept, from your design targets, to go back to the first basic principles. You don't need the fastest machines in the world to calculate something. Just use a pencil and a pen and work out the basic principles of what's actually going on the car. This is my words of wisdom for the first minute. I think we'll come to more questions later. I'll hand over to Owen.
Thanks, Rudy. I don't want to keep you any longer than we have to. We have a lot of judges here. I'd like to talk to you in some more detail. I want to share with you a few items of feedback that I've been given from talking to the judges both yesterday and on Thursday. The first one is, you saw on the score sheets, we score vehicle performance. We don't have specific categories for dynamics of the car or suspension or aerodynamics. So it's important to score well there if you understand the difference or the influence of those things on each other. I've spoken to several teams where there's not a strong link between what the aerodynamics engineers are doing and what the suspension engineers are doing, and how they have to change one or other to work together. So that's something to think about certainly going forward. One of the things as well we've noticed, particularly on the FSE, but also FSC, is any team that's getting into the final has no weak areas at all. If you score poorly in any one of the areas, it tends to mean that the judges are less favorable towards that team in terms of going forward to the design final. And that's something we've noticed even more this year. We do a briefing session for the judges before the event. And one of the things we say during that is it's not what's in front of us, it's why. And this is something that Rudy has just mentioned and Peter as well. Your biggest resource in understanding why is your brain. More money doesn't necessarily help you get a bigger brain. If it does, I'd have certainly spent some by now doing that. But honestly, don't come and say to us we don't have enough money to do things, because in your mind is where you can get the most points in design. One other final thing before I hand over is we talk a lot about validation, and when you go through Formula Student Design, it's good to run the car and understand what the car is telling you. We don't see many examples of teams that look at their data from track running and really make some insights into how they will change the design of the car in light of what they're seeing in the data. I have one judge saying, you know, that the student can tell me if the car is in roll or in heave, but he doesn't understand what that means for performance. What should he do differently to do his design next time? If you're just collecting the data and not actually using it, then it's kind of a little bit pointless. Okay, I'm going to pass you over to Frank.
Okay, as you heard several times, we judge your knowledge, not really the car. The car is judged on Sunday and on Saturday. We judge your knowledge. And that begins also with some mechanical principles, simple mechanical principles, not only theoretical, just the practical part. Yesterday I saw a car with a well-known construction of anti-roll bar. It was with plate springs, with symmetrical construction, but the plate spring for the left corner was directed like that, and for the right corner it was directed like that. And I asked me, is the car constructed only for driving right-hand patterns, or what's the idea behind it? Another thing is, many teams tell me, yeah, we've chosen Madam Wet Tire, Conti, Hoosier, doesn't matter. And it works best with that toe angle and things like that. And when I go to the car and I check the stiffness of your construction, and I'm able with my small arms to turn the wheel, let's say, half of a degree or 1 degree. And if you look at the construction, the forces are not collected in the knots. They are collected here in the middle of your construction. And you lose a lot of stiffness, and the tire will not work. So please be aware of simple mechanical principles.
My turn, I guess. I tried to escape, but I guess it wasn't going to work that way. I've been the chief design judge here since the very first event in 2006. That's now 11 years. Over that period of time, we've built a fantastic core of very responsible and very experienced judges. And I'm now lucky enough that we got some wonderful deputy sheriffs, so I'm able to step aside a little bit. And these days, I can delegate the management of the judging to these guys, and they do an excellent job, which allows me now to be more involved with Pat's Corner, which is where we give feedback and whatever. I have already had 2 teams come talk to me about, one electric team and one combustion team, about scores from the design event. And the question was basically the same. They said, how come that team scored more than us, and our car is obviously much better than theirs? Well, I probably don't need to explain that to you, because this gentleman did, that gentleman did, and that gentleman did. It's not all about the car. Certainly the car is the focal point of your design event, but we're judging your knowledge, your understanding. We don't ask the what questions, we ask the why questions. the one other thing I would like to say to you all is you're all feel absolutely free to come talk to me in Pat's Corner if you want to talk about anything. If you want to talk about design issues, please bring your design report. We can sit down and we can thrash it out and talk about. Now that the judging is over, I can move in a little bit to mentor mode and we could start to give some advice to help you build better cars for next year. I'd personally like to thank you all for coming and say what a fantastic thing it is, and particularly I'd like to say thanks to all those guys in the blue shirts, because they've done a fantastic job, and I'd like you to give them a round of applause.
All right, gentlemen, thanks very much. Concluding words, not much more to say really. I think it's pretty much said everything. What's my last wish to tell you is we've heard a lot of what to do and what to don't in the design judging, and what was good, what was not so good, and so on and so on. What I would like to express, and that's coming deeply from my heart, everybody of you guys who has made it to come to the competition, who has made to establish a car, who is going to run and perform out there, has done a great job. No matter if you score at the highest end of the design judging, or if you score perhaps at a little bit lower end of the design judging, you have done a great job, and we are all aware that it takes a huge effort and a huge investment to establish a car and bring it to the competition. So that's what we value for you, and you should know that we value your offer. So thanks very much for putting all this effort into the cars and being here at the competition and making this competition happen like it is state today. Thank you very much. Okay, that's it. So we have some judges here. If you want to make use of the judges, we have brought the scoring along. So please float around, try to find the judges if you want to get into direct contact with them. As I said, we have the reports as a discussion basis. So feel free, make use of it or don't, so it's up to you. All right, thanks.